and welcome to this video. My name is Eva. Thank you very much for being here. Yeah, I decided to record another talk where I share information. And there's a very interesting theme present, has come in over this week. There were a few meditations and group sessions. And sometimes themes are just coming up and then there is information there. And yeah, I thought I'm going to share it in this video. I talked about it before. I want to talk about it in a little bit more detail, and it's about the layers of our being. So we can say it's layers or aspects or parts of who we are. It's all not separate. I'm going to talk about it in a little bit more of a separate way so that we can understand better. So I want to talk about the human aspect. So, that this is what we're experiencing here right now, the human life, the light aspect and the true nature, and the difference in between all of them. So we start with the human. I mean, we're all human in this life, no matter what, no matter what we are experiencing, no matter how many spiritual openings we have, no matter which level of consciousness we're in and so forth, transmitting energies or working with beings or whatever, people are doing, or just, not doing anything spiritual at all. We are all human in this life. We incarnate, we have a certain lifespan. There are certain things we want to learn, we want to experience, and then we eventually leave this life, right? So we're all always human. And then there is I call it the light aspect, or some people, I just use different words to refer to the same thing. I call it light aspect because I see it being an aspect of ourselves on the spiritual realms that has accumulated information over different lifetimes as humans, and also doing certain things on the energetical level, on the spiritual realms, and experiencing certain things. Information is gathering there. Okay, so this is why I just call it light aspect, because light is information, and really it's just light information stored on that level. And basically this light aspect, probably not all of that aspect, just a part of that, incarnates as humans in this life. So it's very possible that from your light aspect or the soul, a few other humans are incarnated right now. So that's very possible. But anyways, so this is what incarnates as humans. So before it incarnates, this is what actually decides. It wants to have certain experiences in this life and, overcome certain things, or you work through some karmic stuff and so forth. So this is all basically a decision made beforehand, before the soul incarnates. So this aspect of the soul, that the light aspect incarnates, right? So then we all have the same rules that we are following, or we all follow the same rules. We move through this channel of forgetting, or whatever you want to call it. Like we come in and we forget that, who we actually are before we incarnated, also what we've experienced before and so forth. So we kind of forget that. So we all have the same rule set here in this reality on Earth, right? So we all incarnate not knowing. I mean, some people are more open. Some people already, sense certain things as children. They see also other dimensions, so part of the spiritual realm. So there's, certain people have these openings. They're already, then often they close down again. But for most people, they're not there. Okay, so everything is like closed. The main focus is on the human life experience. That said, there's a reason why we incarnate. The main reason is, of course, experiencing this life, because this is what we signed up for. Okay, so there is a reason, and this is our main purpose, because I often get asked the question, okay, what is my purpose, or how can I find my purpose, and so forth. And I know what people mean. So people mean something on the human level. What humans right now find is means success, or where people find that they can be of help, or they can support others, or be successful in life, right? So this is a totally different area to look at this same theme, because if we look at the area of the light aspect, that what incarnates as human, and we look at this aspect, it's all about just experiencing this life, right? And when we look at the same from the human perspective, we are conditioned what a successful life is or how a life needs to be lived, that we have a purpose, or that it is a fulfilled life, and or that we don't want to have suffering, we want to have this and that. There's just all sorts of different wants, needs, conditioning there, that basically tells us on the human level how a life needs to be lived. And this is something I just want to share, that this is different. There are two different perspectives we can look at, because from the light aspect, it's all about living the human life. From a human life, we have certain ideas how we want to live our lives, right? And then from the human life, if the life doesn't fit into the conditioning, we are seen as, okay, we were just not successful. We are not doing anything with our lives. Life is wasted. I don't know, or we go into the total wrong direction. We don't fit into the mainstream, so we do something else, and then we're like, like a little outcasts or something like that, or rebels. And this is so interesting because it's always good to look at both perspectives, because maybe from the light aspect perspective, not maybe, but this is really how it is. The human life needs to go into this direction. So this human life is not like we have this saying 0815 human life. So this mainstream human life experience that everybody kind of wants, like go to school, education, work, family, and then get around children, and then get old, healthy, right? So there are totally many, many different ways of living our lives. And this is just so important to know that, if you feel your life is not successful or whatever that means for you, this also, of course, depends on the conditioning, depending on the country you live in, the family you grew up in, stuff like that, your friends and surrounding. Don't worry about that, okay? Because my work is all about help you to live the most authentic life possible. And this is what I call being connected to the personal highest truth. Would be exactly the same thing. The personal highest truth, there is like a highest truth as vibration, and we all can be connected to that. So first it is just a vibration, so we could say it's one thing. But then when this highest truth is like coming into a human form, where the human form, has, let's say, this information from the light aspect with it, it individualizes, because there is, the human is there, and then the light aspect, it's already individual. And so this light, the highest truth individualizes in the person then, right? In this human life. We can also say living the most authentic life. And this is really what this work is about. So removing everything, all the conditioning, everything we learned in this life, all the trauma, the stuck energies, also like these few past life influences and ancestral influences and the karma, so that we can live the most authentic life, living life from our personal highest truth in this life, right? As a human. And this means living life, or living the highest potential, also living your highest potential in this life. From the light aspect, that means you can just, let's say, fulfill, let's say, what's the best word to describe this? This is a theme that's not so easy to talk about because it's hard to put this in words, but I'm trying. So the light aspect wants to experience certain things, and if we, let's say, allow it to happen, if we support the light aspect, meaning living the most authentic life, also from the human perspective, then this can be fulfilled in the best possible way. And then we feel fully aligned, like life is just a flow. There are a lot of benefits to that. We just know, we have access to our intuition. Also, whatever needs to open up, like on the spiritual level, maybe spiritually working with spiritual stuff, maybe not, maybe it's something totally different. But this is just something very important to understand, that if we don't fit into mainstream, and like from a mainstream perspective, maybe our life is wasted or not successful or whatever. And also for others, not just for ourselves. We had a certain reason to incarnate, and then let's look at this as well, right? Not just the human conditioning. And this also goes for everything else, everybody else who incarnates as human or as an animal, for example. Because, beforehand, animals, for example, decided also to come in and have this experience, right? Like humans as well. And so coming from our personal perspective, so we have the human in this life, we have the conditioning, we have, I call it, this is the template. We have that with us, what we got from the light aspect, right? So this is already like, everything is already like a little form. Life energy moves through this. This is what helps us to experience this life, or this is what life itself is. So we have that, and everybody else has that, and for everybody it's very individual. It's totally different. So nobody is the same. It can't be because of what I'm just sharing. And then, looking at other people's lives and looking at them through our lens of perception, like this whole template that we have, they have a totally different template. And then, let's say, judging them or telling them what to do or how they should live their lives is just something very normal among humans, but it just doesn't really make any sense at all. And I just want to, bring this forward because this is really what people do. They always look on the outside and judge others and tell others what to do and how they should live their lives and, all of these things. And the focus is always on the outside, on others, and not on the inside. Because, spiritual awakening and this whole healing process is only an inside job, it's never on the outside. The outside just brings up stuff that is within us, because the experience is always within us, and this is exactly the same for everybody else. Okay, so it's never anywhere else, it's always within. And I know for a lot of people it's easier to look outside, to look at the chaos in the world, and some people are suffering, and suffering is here and there, and they tune into the suffering of others, not understanding that the suffering is actually experienced within them. They cannot experience other people's experiences. It's really like you tune into that energy, and when you have that still in your system, you have like something resonating in your system, then you feel it, and this is why it's there, and this is the only reason. So, and this is so important because this then totally stops, like knowing this totally stops judging others, looking at others, comparing with others, because it just doesn't make any sense. The experience is always happening within the body-mind system, with what we got in this life, with all the tools, with, everything that's here. This is where the experience is. Okay, so the human is the main experience. This will always be there. It's the same for everybody. Then the light aspect is different, like for some people, how do you see this? The light aspect has also experienced, let's say, different information is stored in all the light aspects as well. Because every light aspect, we can also say this just as a larger accumulation of information, has different information in them. And so this can also have a different frequency, different information, different level of consciousness, stuff like that, right? So, but there is content also there because it's within creation. So there is also still something within that light aspect that wants something, that wants to learn something, that wants to explore, experience something, So there is still a little bit of that there. On the human level, it's a lot stronger because the experience of it is a lot stronger because we combine it with emotions, thoughts. So we experience it in the body-mind system. in this very dense reality of this world. So it's all a lot more intense. It feels heavier. It feels more limited. Okay, and when we look at the light aspect, it's different there because it's just the where we're coming from. Like there is only energy, right? So the circumstances are totally different. Okay, so they don't have the same rule set like we have here and the same density. It's very different. But what I want to go at or share about is that there is intention there, there's wants and needs there. There is also similar things there than in the human reality, in this 3D reality, but it's still different. Okay. So, and this is why when we as humans connect to the spiritual realms, there are energies there. For example, energies I work with, they are there. They some, very high vibration energy, so they don't have a form. But they also have like an intention. So the energies I'm working with to support whoever, wants to have this support, us in this life. So for whatever reason, these energies are there. And if I, bring them in, they're like, okay, I support whoever is offering, whoever wants to take them, whoever wants to have the transformational work happening for them, they can have it. And there are a lot of other energies as well. There are low vibrational ones, there are high vibrational ones, all the, like in the human life. So we have all very, very different humans on this planet, and it's the same there. There is a lot of information there. Yeah, and so we can connect to anything there as well, right? So if people are open, you can connect to any forms of energy with all sorts of different information. And so when people have experiences and they connect to these realms and share that, then it's their experience. It's definitely happening. So it's really about, okay, what do you want to connect to? What kind of energies, and what do you really want with them, right? So this is your intention, connecting and then receiving. Okay, and then we have what I call the true nature, the Brahman, and this is outside of creation. So the human is in creation, is in this 3D reality. Then we have, I just put this basically into one box, the spiritual realms, it's all in creation, it contains content. And then we have the true nature, the Brahman, the one, the absolute that's outside of creation. And from that perspective, it's absolutely neutral. So there is no content. So looking from the perspective of the true nature, everything is neutral. All life experience is neutral, which it is, it always is. But from the lens of the light aspect, it's not, because there is already intention there is needs, wants, and so forth. So there's information there. And from the human, it's also not, because the human system just has also wants and needs. It's very natural. So from the light aspect and from the human perspective, looking at life, it will never be neutral. You can understand this on an intellectual level, so you can understand everything is neutral and it's only my reaction that makes it how it is. Yes, but still the whole system just functions in a certain way, and this is why it cannot be neutral. Okay, from the true nature is always neutral. So no matter what's happening on in this human 3D reality, if it's like something very absolutely amazing, if it's something, normal, whatever that is, or if it's something very horrible, it doesn't really matter. From that perspective, it's always neutral, because it's just the true nature looking into creation, observing, looking into creation and seeing creation happening. It's like when this is experienced through a human form, like through my experience, when I had the experience of the Brahman, which was a few years ago. I only had this experience of the Brahman. This is when that the light aspect was never really a theme for me. I don't really, I explored this a little bit, but not so much. So content-wise, but the human level from the when you are experiencing the Brahman, so becoming the Brahman, totally dissolves. So there is no humanness there. The humanness is gone for a certain amount of time because you basically connect to another part of your being. You connect to that what is absolutely neutral and where there is no content. So this perspective is a totally different one. And so when you look from this perspective into the human life, everything is neutral no matter what's happening. When you look from the perspective of the light aspect, there are everybody who incarnated, no matter what it is. So let's say souls, all the souls that are here, they're here for a certain reason to experience certain things, and they decided this beforehand. Okay, so this is why the information often comes through everything is perfect, because already from the light aspect perspective, everything is perfect, and especially from the true nature aspect. I mean, it's not even perfect from there, but it's just as it is. It just is. Yeah, and so looking from the Brahman, from the true nature into the human experience, everything is exactly as it is and nothing needs to be changed. And also from the light aspect, it's the same, it's absolutely the same point of view. Nothing needs changing. Only from the human perspective, everything needs changing all the time, right? Because this is what the ego does. This is what, in general, our human system does. It wants to grow, it wants to expand, which is amazing. And then we also have the ego, that it has its own little game going on. But from the human perspective, we always want to progress in a certain way, whichever way. So it can be like in a high vibrational way, moving towards a higher vibration, moving towards a lower vibration. It doesn't really matter. It's mostly just a movement, because we can never be stagnant on a human. When we have a human life, it's always going on. Yeah, and this is just very fascinating to understand this. And then also, okay, for example, when you listen to certain information or you read about it, okay, where is this information coming from? Because, when you look, I get this a lot, what's about like happening in this world right now. There is so much going on and it's very negative, and there are a lot of low vibrational stuff is happening. Yes, from the human perspective, that always wants humans are, if there is not like crazy trauma in the system, let's say an average human that has a kind of a half open system, and it's pulled towards his personal highest truth, if we can say that. So let's say an average human, or at least there is a certain openness there. Then a human wants to have peace. It wants to live in peace and want to have a peaceful life, right? And then explore from that area. But then looking from the light aspect into that there is a lot going on in this world. This is what needs to happen, because the souls that are present, first of all, they want to have these experiences. Even though from the human perspective, most people can't accept that. Like how can somebody want to experience certain negative things? From the human perspective, I also it's very hard to understand from the human perspective. I totally see that. But then looking from the light aspects, like, oh yeah, this is what they wanted. And it seems like certain souls, even though they come in for a very short time, or for like a heavier life experience, for them, it's just coming in, having the experience feels very, on the human level, is all very intense because of the emotions and the thoughts and the body. So it's always a very intense experience. But when the soul leaves the body, it's like, when you wake up from a dream, and then you have a kind of a you remember your dream, but then it kind of fades away, and it's like it never happened. And this is really how it is then, that the information or whatever needed to be learned, it was learned, and the rest doesn't really matter. So it seems to incarnate on earth is always like something very positive from the soul level, even though the life experience is not experienced very positive. Again, this doesn't make sense for most people, but this is just what I can share, and maybe this can help you out to accept that, accept other people's life experiences as they are. um, and with accepting, I mean focus on yourself and just leave things as they are. This is just what I can recommend, because it's always about our own experience. The experience is always happening within. We can never know what other people are actually experiencing. We can just assume. So we basically put our um, body mind system template, looking through that at their experience and judging it from there. But really, we don't know what's the experience for them. And this is just on the human level. And then we also have the level of the light aspect of the soul, where yeah, we definitely don't know why the soul chose that life, right? So yeah, and basically from the level of the true nature, everything is just neutral. And this is why it's just something very, I don't know, this is where we need to get eventually, to see through this all, to have an understanding of it, and to know who we truly are. Because if we know who we truly are, the true nature, then we basically see that, I mean, we can say this is all just a creation, a game of consciousness, like everything in creation. We create all experiences so that we have them, that we can, learn, grow, and expand. Everything is just manifesting in front of our eyes when we look at it, and then it collapses. It doesn't really exist from the level of the true nature. From the level of the human, it's not like that. And from the level of the light aspect, if the true nature is not present in the experience of that human, maybe that human has access to the light aspect, but it doesn't have access to the true nature, then it's also not like that. So they can have a sense of that, or an understanding, okay, things are just manifesting, and then they collapse. But really, only the true nature can see that, because it can only be experienced from that perspective. Yeah, and I'm not saying, that, like I said, they are not separate experiences, but I talked about it in a separate way so that I can bring some understanding in around that, because I just think it's very fascinating and it's important to understand. Yeah, and before I wanted to go towards the true nature and say, we have to become that, to see through all of that, and then we don't take any of that personal anymore. We just see that this is happening. Everything needs to happen. It's not a detaching. Okay, so when we move, so let's talk about levels of consciousness now. This is different now again. So for people who don't know, so everything in creation is consciousness, and we can also expand on that level, right? On the level of consciousness. And so when we move into higher levels of consciousness, there is often like an absolute detachment from also the human life is experienced. So nothing is triggering us. We just, up there somewhere out with our consciousness. We don't care what's going on in this world. We don't want to be part of this world, and so forth. And I can just share from personal experience and also talking to others. This is just a phase, because I see this as coming back and forth. It's like waves. Sometimes we're kind of away from the human experience quite a bit. Then we move back into the human even more. Then we go away from the human again, and so forth. So there is always this back and forth movement. So when we are totally detached from the human, but not outside of creation yet, so haven't had that experience yet, it just means this is a phase within creation. Yeah, but it's not the true nature. The true nature is really knowing who you are, and nobody can ever take this away from you. Like, this is solid. Okay. It's like, no matter what somebody else says, it doesn't really like it's not that it doesn't matter what somebody else says, because you can share experiences, and but it's not going to influence your own experience. And also reading other people's opinions or listening to other people's opinions about certain things, it's not going to change who you are. It just cannot do that ever again. And to me, this is the, let's say, the ultimate goal, because everything else before, it's all about, yeah, there are experiences, there is detachment, there is integration, there is openings, there are spiritual experiences, and this all very important, and it's also exciting because this is the feedback that we're actually doing something, and that things are happening. But eventually, the true nature needs to be there. The Brahman, we need to become the Brahman, the oneness at a. Why do I always say oneness? What's the word? Uh, the absolute. So that we totally know that. We totally have an understanding. We have the experience. We are that. We see through the illusion of this, of the creation, okay, in general of creation. And then the para-Brahman, I talk about this as well, is when we come back into the human experience, and then basically bring the Brahman into the human experience. And then eventually this starts integrating, it starts like merging to the human and the Brahman, and then it just becomes one experience, and this stays, and this doesn't really change anymore. And there was just something while I was talking, something else coming in. Hang on. Oh, yeah. And then also, it's very important to understand that on the level of the light aspect, if there is the spiritual realms, there are beings and energies that are supporting us if we want to. But it's also very important to understand that it doesn't mean that they know their true nature. It's possible, but it doesn't mean that necessarily. So, if people are working with beings or energies, it's great, but it's really like I always recommend checking in, like you have to find your own truth in this life. And no matter where you are on these levels and all of these things, it's always about, I have to find my truth. And this needs to be like strong, okay? And also when I work with these energies, that I don't allow them to not allowing, not, but there might be energies that want to influence you in a way, not even like on purpose or negative, but if they don't know their true nature, they also in the illusion. So these energies are also still living the illusion, these beings, of being separate, of stories and so forth. So that I'm not saying we shouldn't like fully trust them or anything like that if we have a good connection, but what I want to say is we always have to listen within ourselves. This is where we find our personal highest truth. We can have, help. We can have information coming in, but we always have to look, does this feel true? Does this seem to be true? Does this resonate? And we can only work with what we have in the present moment, but don't just hop in and work with energies in creation where they might not be, not knowing their true nature, and then they just do certain things. So I just want to make aware of that as well, because they have also their stories going on. So every human in this life has a story, right? So we all have, also as a like a country, you have a story. As a community on earth, we have a story. And also on the spiritual realms, there are also stories of communities, of beings, of energies. And the question is always like, why do we need to buy into their stories? Because, or why do we need their stories? We have our own stories going on. And looking into their stories and then saying, oh, I'm so spiritual, for example, it's like, yeah, it is an exploration, but it's not gonna show you who you are. It's like, it's just, okay, I'm done exploring this 3D reality here. I rather explore the spiritual realms, okay, looking into the information there. But it's basically just another play of consciousness. It's just something that takes you away from looking within, looking who you really are, and like also as a human in this life and in general the true nature, but becoming the most authentic self in this life. So it's also a distraction. And I just want to make aware of that because there are people who feel when they're connected to the spiritual realms and do stuff there that they are awakening or they are expanding. Yes, they are expanding, because yes, expansion is happening on that level because they gain more information, but it doesn't really have to do anything with awakening to who you really are on the level of the true nature. Okay, this is just important as a side note. So yeah, we can explore this and that, but I recommend not getting lost there because you can totally get lost there because again, this is just another realm of content, and we can explore endless contents. You've probably been on Instagram and you can scroll one reel after the other. You can do this for hours, days and months, and I don't know. Always new stuff will come in, and this is the same with this reality and also the spiritual realms. It's just a lot of stories and there's endless content. And so okay, let's try to reduce the content first of all within our system. So withdrawing from the outside, reducing this content, moving into our system, looking within, and then healing and clearing what's there, what we see that is not of our authentic self, right? Which we just stuck energies accumulated in this life, so that we become more open, more expanded, and more clarity comes in, more peace, silence, and so forth. And so that we can move towards the true nature and then eventually become that and then be that. Yeah. So yeah, this wasn't the easiest thing to share, I have to say, because I hope also, I tried my best. It's very possible that it was very confusing. And I absolutely understand if it was, because I was talking about so many different things. But yeah, this is just, to me, when I look at it, it's just, I just see these things, I just know these things, they're just there. But it's another thing to actually use words and talk about them in more detail and to also connect the dots. Yeah, and so this was just something I really wanted to share. So yeah, thank you so much for staying up until this point. I hope you enjoyed the video anyway, so you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, you can always leave me a comment and then I reply, or also please feel free, ask in the group sessions, ask on the Thursday meditation, because usually when there is a question there, other people have the same question, and then others can benefit from that as well. I'm very happy to reply and to answer all questions. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and yeah, see you for the next video. Bye bye.